This is Dr. Mantha. I'm an associate professor in University of Sharjah and also an adjunct faculty at IIT Madras, India. Today, I'll be presenting about social media public response to critical infrastructure cyber disruptions, a Reddit-based multi-dimensional sentiment analysis study. It's an ongoing study, and at the outset, I would like to go ahead and thank our co-authors, Balaji and Dr. Johan, for their contributions, and I'll be presenting our ongoing study, as I had mentioned, on their behalf. This is the outline of today's presentation. I will get started to brief the importance and the significance of the study and some of the recent work that has been done. What methodology did we follow? The results, the preliminary results, I must say, and the discussion, some implications and some concluding remarks. In the interest of time, I might be skimming through some slides, but I would like to kindly request you to bear with me, and I'll be more than happy to go ahead and answer any questions. We will leave our contact details in the end, and of course you have the paper itself if you would like to know more details about it. So without further delay, let me get started with the importance and the significance. As you're all aware, in this day and age, isolation, especially technological isolation, is a myth. It's definitely an illusion. More so for the critical infrastructure that is all the more connected, want it or not, like it or not. This infographic that we developed with the help of Notebook LM nicely encapsulates the several or the crux of what we wanted to sort of bring in, particularly starting from a breach, or in the common parlance, a hack on any critical infrastructure for that matter. When it starts, it sort of percolates into a physical malfunction. That is what meets the eye. That is what sort of gives us that perspective on the whole quote-unquote news. Which of course leads to service disruption. If it is a water treatment plant, etc., your water will stop. If it is a power grid, electricity is shut down, etc., etc. But what doesn't meet the eye, and that is more or less the crux of what we wanted to sort of portray, and the gap hopefully we were trying to fill as well, is how this sort of leads to public panic, and eventually it results in the loss of trust. And that essentially is the focus of what we were trying to do. So to quickly brush through or at least walk you through related studies, as you're all aware, there's a lot of research that has happened on cybersecurity, on critical infrastructure. People have tried to understand the technological reasons, how it can be done, how it cannot be done, how can it be mitigated, how can we thwart cyber attacks, how can we reduce the impact of it, etc., etc. As you can see, there's too many examples across the board in terms of different infrastructure systems. Now, the key aspect that we want to focus on is the people in the cybersecurity. Is it the system that got hacked, or is it the person that was maintaining the system, or the server, or the this, or the that? The question is, how can we build that resilience? Once it happens, is it only the service that is disrupted, or is it also the people aspect, which is essentially that there are different people who are directly or indirectly impacted by it, who go through different emotions. And when they are going through different emotions, understandably so, they will start to go ahead and express that using different forms of communication. And that is what we will try to hopefully take advantage of with the help of social media. And the uniqueness or the contributing aspect of the study also comes from the fact that we uniquely try to go ahead and look at one of the social science theories on how people react, which is the Kubler-Ross model of 5 stages of grief, starting from the denial to the anger to the bargaining to depression to acceptance, on how people sort of react on social media to these typical cyber disruptions that occur in critical infrastructure. With that, broadly speaking, the methodology itself consists of understanding social media posts. I know a preliminary study that we have done was on Twitter, but most of what we have presented in this paper is on Reddit. However, we have both. But the idea was for us to go ahead and understand as to how we can pull the data from Reddit. Particularly, I will go ahead and talk about as to why we have chosen this particular case study as well. But the understanding or the importance for us is that all the information that we found was in English. It occurred in a place wherein the medium of communication was also English in the United States. It occurred on a critical infrastructure that impacted people's lives. And then, more importantly, we did find good amount of discourse online in both the platforms that we were trying to look at. So broadly speaking, the Reddit analysis pipeline itself, we took the incident right from the day it was announced, it was made public, when the public came to know about it. We tried to go ahead and look at it overall in the next 1 year, and we tried to go ahead and pull all the tweets and the comments and the replies and everything else. And then we started to go ahead and look at the relevance, because there could be some comments that potentially are not relevant. We tried to go ahead and eliminate those. And then we tried to look at each relevant comment, post, reply, and we started to go ahead and apply sentiment tagging. We identified 20 different tags. We applied them with the help of LLMs. We had a human oversight validation, and then finally we went ahead and did the sentiment analysis. In the interest of time, again, as I had mentioned, I will only be able to show you the glimpse of some results, and probably two of the important results that I would like to bring your attention to are in the graphs that you see. One on the left top, wherein we are trying to go ahead and show the quantum of the reactions that were tagged based on different emotions that we have right from the beginning to the end. As you can see, there's a lot more activity, lot more discussion, especially during the first few hours of when the announcement was made public, and later it sort of dies down. This is nothing new. This was expected. That essentially is the nature of how social media works, understandably so. However, the interesting aspects are, as you can see in the context of what we are trying to do as well, there's a lot, or at least significant portion of it is coming from the security concern. However, we can see that in the posts and others in the right bottom, we can see from the different colors apart from the gray that you can observe there, that there is a lot of sarcasm, there's a lot of humor, there's a lot of anger as well that percolates down the line. The original post itself is more or less information purposes only, but the replies and that etc. is essentially the perception and the expectation and how people are reacting to it and how people perceive it, etc. etc. So coming to quickly some of the observations and findings and extrapolations that we tried to do from the analysis that we have, and how we try to apply one of the social science theories, which is the Kubler-Ross model, in terms of how we can learn from it. These are some of the infographics that we try to develop. More importantly, I think the point that we would like to go ahead and emphasize particularly is how we are trying to go ahead and extrapolate these two to see if we are able to come up with some recommended actions for different stakeholders, right from public to media to government agencies as well, depending on the amount of activity that we have seen over time, depending on within that activity, what sort of emotions were they, how were they perceived, etc., etc. So that said, this infographic is a very good, hopefully, summary of what we tried to observe, particularly giving the quantitative aspects as well, starting from as to how we observed most of the engagement that happened within the 6 hours of the incident that occurred. So I think time is of essence. The clock is ticking, especially if I may, loosely. in the context of social media to understand as to how people are reacting. Security concern still remains one of the dominant tags, understandably so, in the context of what we were trying to analyze, particularly for Reddit data. However, we did observe good enough proportion of humor, sarcasm, and anger as well, as you can see, which is distributed across 25% each. That means there is good enough humor, sarcasm, and anger that people go ahead and probably respond. So which says that application of theoretical model that we applied seems relevant. However, we did not observe a linear trend that typically is expected in physical responses to emergencies. That in the digital presence, we did not find that linear way of application of that particular model. So that said, for some of the concluding remarks, we would like to go ahead and say that the Florida incident itself clearly proves that cybersecurity is no longer just securing just the perimeter itself as we have started with. It's no longer about the technological, it's no longer about the technical aspect of it, but also about, in the context of critical infrastructure, it is also about securing the public. So with that, we would like to thank you for your time, and please reach out to us if you have any questions. You can reach out to us via emails. We'll be more than happy to go ahead and answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.